Here is today's Lichess puzzle of the day. So let's begin. Here we go. Queen c4. What did it capture? A pawn. Okay. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to find black's best continuation. I hope you see it. For those that wish to have a little help with this position, that's fair enough. Then I will give you a clue or two. First of all, we can see that here the pawn can be captured with the bishop or the rook, of course, but the rook is way better than the bishop. So the clue is that black sacrifices, and there's not really any other way to go for black than to sacrifice. So what do I mean by black sacrifices? Because it looks like we can just get a draw, can't we? Just by going rook check and then rook back here check. Okay? But that's actually not very good. So that's my clue. If we just go rook takes g2 here, okay, then the king has to move to h1. Okay, now I'll get rid of the arrows. So the king's on h1 now. And the rook is on g2. Now, if we move the rook anywhere, even h2, it's check, isn't it? Still with the bishop. So we can move this rook, which is called in chess a battery. We can move this rook just about anywhere on the chessboard, and it's still check with the bishop as soon as we move this rook. In fact, we can move it anywhere, the rook on g2 with the king on h1, anywhere on the board, and we can move it here, 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 here. We can't move it anywhere else, or can we? So there's the clue. So I hope you've worked it out. And of course, the answer to this solution is coming up shortly, but I do wish to speak about your visualization skills a little bit more, as is very important for me as well, or for any chess player for that matter. So as soon as we move this rook from g2, it's going, with the king on h1, it's going to be check. So can you find the next move for black, which is, there's some good moves, but there's a better move than what I might like to initially play. So let's just analyze without moving the pieces, otherwise the puzzle PD82U is going to have a wee fizzy fit. So say for instance we go rook g2 check, king h1, okay? Now it's black's move. If we go sometimes rook f g2 to just g3 is checkmate. And if the queen's not there and this pawn's not there and the rook's not there, then that would be correct. Because then rook g3 is just checkmate with the king on h1. Hope you can see that. Where something like, let's say a knight not is sitting there. Because if a knight's sitting there, it can take the bishop on e4, can't it? After rook g3 check. It can just go knight f2 takes e4 check, gone. And then white's going to be looking at the rook on g3 sort of thing. So in most cases though, rook g2 check and rook g3 is checkmate sometimes. And that's why it's called a battery. The reason why it's called a battery is that this rook can move away, and if this is a 7th rank, an absolute 7th rank for white, for black I mean, then this rook would be able to go rook a2 check with the king on h1, king g1 and rook g2 check, king h1, and could do that till the cows come home, and somewhat after that. So here comes the answer to the problem. I still do wish to speak to you about your visualization, because there's a couple of things we could do. We could go rook g2, okay, check, king h1, and if we go rook g3 or rook g4 even, it's check, isn't it? And then f3, bishop f3 check, rook f3, okay, and then rook takes queen. And what is the position after that? Well, we have a rook and no bishop gone. We have a king, pawn, pawn, pawn. Okay? And whereas white has got pawn, 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 bishop, rook, rook, and king. So white's going to be in the winning seat there. Because our bishop's gone, hasn't it? I think. So here comes the answer, okay, without further ado. Okay, now we go rook takes g2 check. Now, as I mentioned before, there is more ways to skin a cat. Not that I'm not interested in that sort of thing, because I like to think about myself a little bit like a cat in chess. I like to play with my prey. So here I've said that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares for the rook to go to. But hang on, you might say you're incorrect. It can go to another square. And so that is the answer, is to now sacrifice with rook g1 check. See how the computer did not complain. And these are absolute checks. Now watch this checkmate. Wow. Check. Mate. Wow. So there you go. I've explained a battery in chess, where it's similar with a knight here for black and a bishop here and a king here. The knight can just move back here, check. And in this case, if the king's on h1 and if king g1, then we can just go knight h3 checkmate, or we could just play the battery knight f3 check, king. It's not so good, is it? But this is with a pawn on g3 for white. Okay, hope you like that, and all the best with your chess, no matter where it's at, and try to enjoy it, and try to take the good with the bad, because often, for me at least, I have to put up with the bad. Okay, bye for now.